Holy fantastic last minute saves. This is Flight Check, Season 3, Episode 2. Nobody knows what just happened on our side, but we know. Look, producing a podcast, live streaming, all of it, it can get real complicated, folks. And,
you forget a thing or two.
You know, you sometimes you just forget what you're doing. But here we are. My name is Sandy Toes, as always, joined by my favorite fan podcast co-hosts, Noxwar and Curly Double Q. Gentlemen, LCS still another week and a half away. However, NACL starts this week, and lots of exciting matchups. The problem that we now have is we have two teams to root for in NACL, which means there are 5
That is
matchups.
A good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have, but we have 5 matchups this weekend, both through Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday. So a lot to talk about tonight. We'll be hitting power rankings, all of it, and we've got our power rankings locked and loaded for you all to comment on and get angry about. However, we are here ready to discuss what is on our minds. Nox, how are you feeling about NACL? It's starting up this week. Lots of excitement. One thing I'm looking forward to is seeing what teams enter those open qualifiers, and what teams might stand up and knock out teams like AOE or Cincinnati Fear. So I'm curious to see who ends up joining those open qualifiers. How about you?
No, I'm very, very excited for both NACL this weekend as well as the OQs. Unfortunately, the OQs have had little to no information about them at all. There's been I think 4 or 5 teams announced, and unironically, and I'm not saying this because I talked to Colomer a little bit, but unironically, one of the best OQ teams currently is Native Gaming, who the GM is Colomer. That is a very hyped team. Keep an eye out for them come the promotion tournament. I'm very much expecting this team to be giving the current 6 provisional teams a run for their money and a spot in the NACL come summer. But I'm ready. This weekend is going to be very, very fun. It should be very interesting to see what kind of what the landscape of the league looks like with new teams added in, these expansion teams. We already have a civil war on day 1 between the CLG Faith and CLG Challengers. We have 3 FLYFAM matchups on days Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I'm sure we'll go that over in a little bit. And then Fly Challengers also has back days of them playing too. A lot of content, a lot of games. I don't think it's interesting because normally watching FlyQuest and even FlyQuest Academy, you were lucky to get 6 games. So I think the max was 7 games on Super Weeks. We're getting 10 games in one single weekend. We're already doubling the amount of a Super Week. It is just absolutely insane.
Yeah. No, it is a lot. Curly, how are you feeling? Hey, is this your time to finally be able to watch a challenger and amateur matchups now that you've got, now that it's not on the middle of the week? Is this your time?
Honestly, I am ready to put all the salt in my veins and consume NACL all the time. But actually, yeah, because it's a lot of very convenient timing. Granted, Saturday's still going to be tough for me. Because, as a bartender, I usually work those nights. So I was always on VOD Squad for that, so it's still going to be the case here. But, Sunday, I can always have that on in the middle of D&D and watch that while I'm waiting for the wizard to determine how much their fireball is going to do.
Right. Exactly.
And so Sunday is going to be peak viewership for me. And then even Monday, I won't be... Next week, it's going to be tough because they are going to be playing at the same exact time as us streaming. So we're going to have to do live updates on that. But for most Mondays, I'll be able to watch anything leading up to the show. It'll be really, really nice. So this viewership is perfect for me to really understand what the development portion of North America is looking like.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so one quick announcement before we get into previewing the NACL matchups this week. It's returning. It's back. Flight Check Fantasy. I rebooted the league. It's me, Nox, Curly, and our returning champion, Road Roller. So far, are 4 of the 8 teams. That means there are 4 open slots left if you are interested hit me up in the Flight Check Discord, which you can join. There should be a link from one of our bots in the chat sometime soon.
Yep. Posted a little bit ago.
There
There
you go.
was just one.
Hit me up in there, and we'll get you into that league. Draft will be early next week, probably either Monday or Tuesday, possibly Monday, so that we can then talk about it on next week's show. And then we will get into another fantasy LCS season. Nox was kind enough to hook me up with the LFL Super Fantasy League. I apologize, I don't remember the exact title of how it goes, but basically it's a bunch of content creators all getting into one big fantasy LCS league. So I am going to be representing Flight Check in that. So I will put in the chat somewhere the link to LFL Pod's Twitter. He gave a nice rundown of everyone who's going to be in that league this season and everything that you can watch out for there. That draft is Thursday night. He'll be streaming it, I believe, so I'll be sure to retweet that on the Flight Check Twitter when that comes up. So be sure to watch out for all of that great content. Season 3, 2023 is the year of collaboration between content creators, you know? That's just how it's going to be. So, let's get into it. NACL starts Saturday, 4 o'clock. There's only one FlyQuest matchup that day, but then 2 on Sunday and 2 on Monday. No Civil War matchups yet, but Nox, let's talk about these matchups. We're not going to go too in-depth into each of them because we do have to do power rankings, and it is going to be a bit of a quicker show tonight, I think. So we're going to hit these quickly. But first off, FLYFAM going up against a giant in Cloud9 Challenger.
Yeah.
What a tough way to start off. Nox, tell me about this matchup and how you're feeling here.
Straight up, Menace has got me severely worried, right? Menace is supposed to be this absolute god. People are calling for him to be in the actual starting roster of Cloud9, right? I love Blaze. I really hope he can keep him in check, because Blaze is good, do not get me wrong, but based off of everything that I've been hearing about this player that Menace is, this is very lopsided, not in favor of Blaze. So hopefully, though, what ends up happening is you have Lost and Zazel in the bot lane for Cloud9, and I mean, obviously they're very experienced, and they are very, very good, but I'm hoping is that you kind of have this, like, young, like, I know Instinct's been around for a little bit, and Sword has been around a little bit in the amateur scene, but, like, this kind of younger talent, I'm hoping can kind of, like, rise up to challenge these kind of vets in the bot lane of Cloud9 challengers. And then, hopefully, and this is where it also gets a little bit lopsided in front of FlyFam. You have Lunasi and Goo, who are these two brand new players, have not really done all that many competitive games, versus Fake God, who, I mean, I know people kind of meme him for his play and his quality of play in the LCS, but you have to understand he is still LCS worthy. And this LCS worthy player will be playing against someone who's had, I think, maybe 2 best of 3s experience in terms of actual Riot sanctioned tournament time. So I'm really, really just hoping this is just going to be a trial by fire. Just take what you can, learn from it, move on from there.
Yeah, Curly, I mean, this is not going to be an easy matchup whatsoever for the team. What would you kind of want to see out of them? You know, is there any kind of level of play that you're hoping to see, or are you just looking for, you know, some kind of just, you know, keep it competitive?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the best case scenario is we start off the season with a surprise upset, but pulling back to more realistic expectations, I would want them to make C9 Challengers work for the expected win. You know, like, don't go down without a fight, show some resilience, make it, like, don't make it easy to destroy that Nexus, and, like, if they can hold up against the powerhouse that is C9 Challengers, I think that'd be a really, really good way to start off the season and, like, just bring really good vibes to the squad, to the fans, and all that stuff. Because, like I said, I do expect it. Like, they've got it against them. a bunch of new talent against some really, like, when you've got Tomio on the roster, you've got Fake God, you've got Zazel. Like, these are some really proven academy talents coming into the Challengers League, so it's like, it's tough.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think rough way to start off the season for them, but hopefully they'll bounce back because the next day they go up against CLG Challengers. So quick rundown.
This one's not much better, to be honest.
Not much better. Jenkins, Kevy, Copy, Meech, Breezy. So back-to-back really difficult matchups. Nox, tell me about this one. I mean, how do you feel?
It is very much kind of in the same vein as Cloud9. You have Copy, who has been a mid laner who, let's be honest, has been deserving an LCS spot for multiple years now at this point. People have been crying out that this man needs to be able to get into the LCS. He needs a team, and he keeps not being able to get on a team. He is a very, very good mid laner. So this will be a bit of another trial by fire for Blaze. Yeah. Again, I don't think Blaze is anywhere near bad enough to be where he's just slaughtered in the lane. I do think he's actually a very, very good player. It's just I don't really foresee him continuously getting advantages over these two players of Copy and Jimenez. The bot lane, on the other hand, is kind of different in the sense of it's not veterans, it's Meech and Breezy, both upcoming talent, and both very good upcoming talent at that. I think they do somewhat outmatch Instinct and Sword, but it's not like a gigantic matchup difference. It is absolutely winnable for that bot lane, so if anything, that's probably one of the areas I would be targeting, because yet again, if you look to the top side in jungle, you have Jenkins, who's very much like a lower-end LCS caliber player, just like Fake God, but he is an LCS caliber player. So I would say, and this is kind of what I said like probably 2 podcasts ago, back in like season 2, of this team, like provisional teams have to be built somewhat to win, but FlyQuest is also making it a choice to like somewhat develop players, in which case this is the top and jungle side of things. So a lot of this is going to be reliant on Instinct and Sword to be able to carry this team, and this is an aspect where, or this is a matchup where this is just that. You're probably outmatched a little bit by Meech and Breezy, but it's not unwinnable. In fact, it is very much winnable for Instinct and Sword. So keep an eye on the bot lane for this particular matchup. Hope Blaze doesn't get rocked by a Copy. He shouldn't. And then really just hope for survival from Lunasi and Goo.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my take just kind of on the whole weekend for FlyFam is show strong performances, scrap out a couple wins where you can, and just take what you learn and use it as fuel for the next several weeks, because it's trial by fire. I think you might have said that already, but
yep.
It's going to be difficult, and what I want to see from the team is that there's no loss of motivation just after week 1. These are high-quality players. They are good. They're by no means, like, bad. I think I do have some concerns that there could be a sharp motivational drop if they get absolutely butt blasted, in 4 straight games. So I'm looking for scrapping out a win or 2, maybe at least 1 tie out of these matchups, and then going into their Monday matchup. We'll cover Fly Challenger in a second, but their Monday matchup, little bit easier. They take on the other half of CLG Faith, and we get to see old face NXI on the opposing side of the Riff. Some interesting names on this list for CLG Faith. Bajani, NXI, Serenok, BMFX, and Sketch. Both Bajani and Serenok from Venezuela, which is really cool, actually. But I think they both have NA residency. They were just born in Venezuela.
Correct.
And then, Low Poly is the coach for CLG Faith. This is the one where I am looking for them to minimum get 1 win or just 2-0 the series. That's what I would like to see. Bounce back from probably some tougher matchups Saturday, Sunday, go into Monday, dominate here, and feel a lot better about how the weekend went. Curly, I mean, do you feel like we match up well here? I know we haven't really seen any gameplay yet, so it is tough to say, but just on paper, I feel like they should really expect to walk in here and dominate this matchup.
For sure. Coming from previous seasons, like last year, looking at the players that are returning, like I do think FlyFam, this is their best chance to like pop off and show up and like really prove themselves here. I'm especially going to be paying attention to the jungle when we watch the VOD on this because, you know, obviously we've seen NXI perform before. I've watched his stream, so I want to see how Goo would be able to hold up against that. Because NXI is, you know, with the interesting path of having been in the LCS for half a split and then coming, like going into retirement and then coming out of retirement into the a professional team. It's like, all right, this guy's definitely like got the stuff. He just kind of has to prove himself again. So he's kind of going to be like, you know, the sleeper where it's like he's in a development league, but like, does he belong there? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing to look out for on CLG Faith.
Totally. Nox, how about you? Is this a matchup that they should be dominating? Are we looking for the 1-1? How are you feeling about this one here?
I personally think FlyFam is a little bit better than CLG Faith. I think well, it's hard to say I think. I'm guessing that FlyFam is going to be better than CLG Faith as a whole, like in terms of roster build. And so I currently have CLG Faith ranked last place in my power rankings. I think they're going to come last. But at the same time, from all my discussions of who I've talked to with everyone, it seems like pretty much most of the provisional teams can be like, completely switched like 11th through 16th, like with absolutely no issues at all. Like you really just truly don't know.
Yeah.
So having said that, minimum there needs to be a win here. Because for those of you who need a reminder or have not heard, the way provisional teams work in this particular league is, while yes, you are competing against other challengers teams now, you're still even more effectively playing against the other provisional teams to be into the top 2 amongst those 6. Because if you're not in those top 2, you're in relegation zone. It doesn't matter where you place in 1 through 16. If you're in the bottom 4 of those provisional teams, you're going to the promotion tournament. So I really, really, really do need to see a win here from FlyFam against CLG Faith, because if they don't, that's already putting a massive step back and makes it very, very hard to suddenly make it past into that 1-2. So keep an eye out. At a minimum, we need a win here against CLG Faith.
Absolutely. All right, so that is FlyFam. Let's move over to the Challengers roster. So reminder for all you who might have missed, it's Philip, UG, Spirex, Masu, and Winsome. So let's talk about them. They don't play Saturday. They do play Sunday. First matchup. Now, if FlyFam had, like, the nightmare week 1 start, Fly Challengers has, like, the dream week 1 start.
It's like the group of life, but, like, for a week.
Yeah, exactly. So, Sunday, they start off against AOE Esports, so that's Gamsu, Winnie, Darkwings, Lynx, and Skytech. And then Sunday, they play TSM Challengers, so that's going to be that weird roster of Haunter, Svenskeren, Doxa, Wild Turtle, and Dragku. So, let's talk about this. Going to be an interesting weekend for them as well. I think they should look to 3-1 or 4-0 on this weekend, in my opinion. I think that should be the aim. I think that's doable. Again, based off of solely on paper, what we know about these players, especially, in my opinion, going up against this TSM Challengers roster, this is their opportunity to show that they are better than some, I don't want to call them washed, but some more veteran LCS pros. If you can come out and dominate against TSM Challengers, I think that goes a long way towards showing what this Fly Challengers roster is capable of this season. Nox, are you in agreement on that? Are you more hesitant about this? Or how are you feeling about this TSM matchup?
I'm completely in agreement. I do Yeah, you're absolutely correct in that it's not necessarily washed, but they are very much veteran players. But
Yeah.
you still have someone in Sven Skaren who has been very much like still in the scene, still very much been practicing, even if he hasn't been on like multiple like actual playing teams. Like,
Right.
I actually think Sven Skaren is a very good jungler still. Like, you do need to be wary of him. Hanser and Wild Turtle, on the other hand, I really don't know. I've seen like nothing about their practice schedules or how they've been doing in terms of like quality of play. I haven't even heard anything. So yeah, and then on top of that, AOE, in my opinion, is probably the best provisional team. This is a scary provisional team. I mean, I think you had them ranked 9th or 8th. I had them ranked 9th or 8th. Curly, I think, also had them somewhat similarly ranked. I cannot say that word. Yeah, my point being is this is not out of all the provisional teams, like this is definitely not one you can disrespect. You do need to actually do your homework. You do need to understand how these guys play, or at least try and guess how they're going to play,
right?
And then go from there. So yes, everything you said is absolutely I'm on board with. This should be a 4-0 to 4-1 weekend for these guys. But at the same time, there's some interesting circumstances that make these matches not like just a wipe over or whatever. This isn't Fly Challengers playing against CLG Faith or like Wildcard Gaming, right? Like this, there is reasons for these to be close games.
Totally.
But we should still be favored.
Yeah. Curly, how do you feel about this TSM Challengers roster? And I know we already ranked all these teams last week, but talk to me about maybe kind of more of the narrative around this team and how you're feeling about what it means for our Challengers team to go up against them and what a good performance might do for Fly Challengers.
For sure. It is an interesting team because it's like when I see TSM Challengers, I don't see as much of a development roster as much as I see LCS vets who might not be in the spotlight anymore. Like, Sven Skaren and Wild Turtle in particular, who I'm looking at, where like they've been up there, they've had some high peaks, but for whatever reason in recent seasons, they've not quite made it up there. And so this is kind of like a place where they put them. And so that's one of those teams where you didn't look at this and it's like, should this even be allowed? Like all that stuff. But if you can take those names and those experienced players, and then you can beat it, great precedent for the season. And I do believe that this like young talent, especially Philip, having been tested on a whole summer split against some really, really good top laners, given a lot of experience there, I think like they have it in them. And then I'm sure there's a lot of great development from the Korean boot camp, like for team synergy, for making like more like better calls, better play styles. So I'm really excited to see how this roster performs, and I do have faith we could even pull out a 2-0 on the day.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Nox, talk to me about AOE really fast, and then we'll just say we'll go through. We'll predict end of week 1 records for both FlyFam and Fly Challengers.
Quick rundown. I know you said the roster earlier, but just to reiterate, top lane is Gamsu, has won, I think, Proving Grounds twice now, if I remember correctly. He did it once on 100X, and then... No, that's not right. Either way, he's won Proving Grounds once, and he's done very well in Proving Grounds, is my point.
Yeah.
Then you have Winnie, who has been an up-and-coming jungler in the amateur scene, who I have a lot of respect for. I've gotten to listen to his comms before while I was reffing for Proving Grounds. Very, very good up-and-coming jungler. Keep an eye on him. Darkwings, Dignitas Academy last year before getting moved around and all sorts of weird stuff. Don't write him off just because he got moved down. Still a very, very good player. Very, very good. Lynx is probably the weakest link. Sorry. Lynx is probably the weakest part of this roster, I would say. And then you have Skytech, who's been around in the scene for a while, has some very interesting support play style and very interesting support picks, but is honestly kind of the reason why it makes him fun. So yeah, like this is ideally, in my mind, what a win now amateur roster should be. I think AOE, for what they're doing, is very, very good. Like this is a good roster build for their goals. Up against FlyQuest Challengers, though, I just don't think anything matches up. I think closest is Gamsu versus Philip, but I think Philip got a lot of needed experience in the LCS this past year. Yuji should pretty much single-handedly wipe the floor with Winnie. As good as Winnie is, I really do like him, but Yuji's just a level above. Spirax is just cracked, dude. I don't know if anyone was watching him in Korea over the offseason, but he should have the upper hand over Darkwings. And then we have Masu, who this is actually, funnily enough, the one matchup that is probably very close because Masu is obviously an up-and-coming AD carry. But obviously, Fly saw something in him that was worthy of putting him on to the Challengers roster and not even just the FlyFAM roster, which I thought was very interesting. But even then, this particular matchup should be very even. And then you have Winsome, who has had a great glow up over in Europe, right? Yeah, and comparing him to Skytech, I think Winsome should theoretically have the advantage over Skytech. Yeah. So all this to say, should be good. Not too worried, but like I said earlier, respect still does need to be given.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, Nox, give me your predicted records for both FlyFAM and Fly Challenger after week 1.
Fly Challenger, I'm going to go with a 4-0. They should be able to 2-0 both of these teams. I won't be terribly upset if it ends up being a 3-1. Anything less than that, I will be a little frustrated and upset because it's not really a reason to be dropping 2 games to either of these teams. FlyFAM, it's going to be rough. I'm going to go 1-5. I am expecting a draw with CLG Faith, and then I just don't think they're going to be able to take games off of CLG Challengers or Cloud9 Challengers, unfortunately.
Well, there you have it. Curly, you go, and then I will finish it off.
Sure thing. FlyFAM, I think, is unfortunately going to be 0-2 against C9 Challengers. I think they, just for entropy's sake, I think it might squeeze out a 1-1 against CLG Challenger. And then I'm going to also predict a 1-1 against CLG Faith. Mm-hmm. And then for the Fly Challenger squad, I'm predicting a 3-1. I think we're going to drop one to TSM Challengers, but I think we're definitely going to be able to 2-0 AOE. Just got a good amount of experience on our squad,
Yeah, totally. I think... All right, so Fly Challengers, I'm going to go with the 3-1 this weekend. Not sure who they'll drop to, but it'll be one of these teams. And then FlyFAM, unfortunately, I think it'll probably be a 1-5 weekend. I think it's going to be a tough start, but they'll bounce back in week 2. I can almost guarantee it. Things get a little easier, well, kind of easier for them next week. So that is NACL week 1, and we will see how things go. Reminder that starts Saturday. FlyFAM is at 6 o'clock against Cloud9 Challengers, and then 4 o'clock CLG Challengers the next day. Fly Challengers 8 versus AOE. And then they play back-to-back Monday night. Actually, sorry, not even back-to-back. They both play at 8 o'clock on Monday night versus their respective teams.
Yeah, I might tweet out later just the full schedule because there's a lot of matches to keep track of. So keep an eye out on our Twitter. And it is both in FlyQuest Discord as well as our own Discord. So if you need it, they're there.
Yes. All right, we are going to move over to the new Flight Check presentation zone in just a second, and I'm going to quickly hide that. All right, you did not see our rankings, but I will reveal them in a second. All right, so this is LCS Power Rankings. We do this every pre-season. We will revisit them at the end of the season. I have gone ahead and calculated the aggregate. Spoiler alert, Curly 1 through 8 is the exact aggregate. And then he flips his 9 and 10 from the aggregate. But basically, Curly averages...
I am the benchmark.
He is the average between me and Nox, which is very funny to me. All right, I did not ask you guys this before, but we could do this one of 2 ways. One, I could slap the 1 through 10 up there for you, or I could reveal them line by line as we go up. Which would you guys
Let's go
rather
up.
do? Let's go up.
Let's ascend.
All right, so what I'm going to have to do here is... Oop, didn't mean to do that. Go like this. All right, there we are. That is line 10. At the bottom, so Curly's on the left, Nox is in the middle, I'm on the right, and then on the far right is the aggregate. So you'll just have to keep that in mind. Starting off, Nox and I are in agreement that Immortals is the 10th ranked team. Curly has TSM there. Curly, why are you so down on TSM versus Immortals? I know, all right, spoiler moment here, you do have Immortals at 9th, so it's not much of a difference, but why are you so down on TSM versus Immortals?
Well, in the most respectful way possible, you can tell that they were reliant on a sham company for funding. But, like, to be honest, TSM, I think the big thing is it's kind of like a patchwork team to me, where it's like, all right, their budget got dramatically decreased over the last year, and so they're relying on a mix of like contracts that were already there, and contracts they knew they could have, and then seeing what affordable talent was out there. And so I don't know much about Boogie, so that's like one place that might be able to flip the script on my opinion about the whole roster. But Solo, the mercenary of the LCS, I think is a very mid player. He has some high highs, but like if you get him off Gnar, I don't know how much he can do.
Actually, not a mid.
Good joke. But but the top lane, I think across the rest of the teams, is just better. So it's like it takes him from a mid tier player to the bottom tier of what's out there. And then we saw like Maple, Neo, and Chime perform last year, and I think just compared to the pool of talent out there, I think like LCS really dramatically increased like the power of their teams everywhere else, and TSM didn't. And so they were already towards the bottom last year with a surprise, like some surprising moments in playoffs. And so I think this is just kind of what keeps them at the bottom.
Yeah. Nox, how about you? Why do you have Immortals at the absolute bottom?
So, you might hate me for this, Sandy, but I actually think I might switch my pick here.
All right. I can do this real time.
And so let me explain the reason why. So originally, when I made this power ranking, it was right after every single roster was just announced, and this was like over a month ago, give or take, right?
Yeah.
Over that period of time, there have been certain players that have been in Korea practicing and training, and I've been able to watch some of those players. And someone on the Immortals squad has actually rather impressed me. And he goes by a very interesting, quirky name of FLYC. This support player has actually looked very, very good from the few games that I've seen, along with all the hype that he has been getting from other people in the scene. And that alone is the reason why I'm no longer going to put Immortals in 10th, along with the fact that I've seen lots and lots of improvements to Immortals staff.
Okay.
So I'm going to end up joining Curly in the TSM in 10th place position.
All right. Well, we are real-time switching this. Let me see if that changes the...
It does. It should inherently change it, because if I flipped...
Hang on. I got to do some math here.
Sorry, Sandy. I probably should have thought about it earlier.
2 + 2 is 4 - 1.
Well, actually, technically, it puts... because of where I have TSM ranked, Immortals and TSM are still tied for... They're now tied for 9th in the aggregate, so...
Where do you have TSM? All right, that'll be
interesting. He has to have a mate.
Yeah, so... look, I'm not saying one way or another, but there's that. That's fair.
Interesting.
All right. Well, we can... Maybe let's move on up to 9th, and I will reveal the next line of the rankings. All right. In 9, now, for Nox, and Curly,
Mm.
Immortals, and I have Golden Guardians. So I'll talk about this real quick. Golden Guardians, Licorice River, Gory, Stixay, Hoo-Hee. I'm still kind of down on this roster. I don't. I think Hoo-Hee is a nice upgrade, but I just don't know about the rest of it. It's it's in comparison to all the other rosters, right? Like, I actually think this is not a bad roster, but I just don't know if it does anything special in comparison to some of the other rosters. I could be convinced here, actually, to maybe swap Golden Guardians and TSM. I do have TSM in 8th. I could be convinced to swap Golden Guardians with TSM. So, you guys talk to me about your... Curly, why don't you talk to me about Immortals in 9th while I think about this real quick.
Sure. I think one thing that like definitely contributes to me putting them in 9th is my lack of information on FLYC. He's a newer player for me, and coming in from the TCL, I don't know how well TCL imports have historically performed in NA aside from Poom and Luger. And actually,
Poom is North American.
Poom is North American. Sorry, Luger is TCL. Well, and then Crawl Closer. I'm changing this now. Immortals is going like now. I thought extra 5 seconds, and I wish I had done this when I first did it. You know, Closer is just so ingrained into the LCS for me that there are fleeting moments like just now. I forget he comes from the TCL, but he does. But anyway, it's my lack of knowledge of this player that definitely contributes a bit to it. But then also I think about how a Blaze Olive is facing a lot fiercer competition this season compared to his rookie season. And so even though he was a really good rookie, there's a lot more mid laners out there that can have the potential to outshine him. Tactical is someone that I've always like really not seen a lot of flashy or high-end moments from. So I think like the thing that might bring them up is if Fleshy really comes in and boosts that bot lane. I think Kenvi is definitely a reliable jungler, but I don't know how well that's not going to work out. And then Revenge, I've always been honest, is like kind of one of my lower tier top always has been. I think he's a great guy, great personality, but when it comes to like the gameplay in the league, he doesn't do it for me, unfortunately. And so that's why I put them in 9th. However, this seems like, especially because there's a lot more retained parts of the roster from last year, I do think that this is going to be able to, you know, take that step above TSM and solidify 9th place.
Yeah, makes sense. If you were not paying attention just now, I did do a little swap. I just bumped Golden Guardians up to 8th, which I will... We're going to keep moving through this. All three of us have Golden Guardians at 8th now. And so the aggregate bottom three for us is Golden Guardians, Immortals, and TSM. Let's talk about this Golden Guardians roster, I think. Nox, in looking at it again, I was actually like, this actually is a little bit better than I thought. 6A Hoo-Hee is a known bot lane. I still think River's good. Gory can be pretty decent, actually. And Licorice is a known quantity, but, like, overall, I was like, why did I have TSM over Golden Guardians in the first place? So, I'm liking this Golden Guardians roster more on second look. Tell me your thoughts on them and why you have them 8th.
So it really feels like there are three players on this roster that are in the qualifications of like this could be a good roster, right? And that being Hoo-Hee, and that being Gory, although Gory is very volatile. And then River, right?
Yeah.
We saw River was very, very good this past year, although he was on two very struggling teams, but he made those teams look good. Gory has been all over the world, basically. He was in, like, lower-end LCK. He was in the PCS. His solo queue absolutely is just popping off from what I've heard and from the few clips that I've seen. It's very funny. I think Gory is far and away the most volatile player in the LCS currently. I've seen people ranking him unironically in 10th. I've seen people unironically ranking him as the best mid in the LCS. And so, for that reason alone, just because I haven't seen enough clips of him, I have seen some clips, but I don't feel safe going anywhere up or down, so I'm just ranking him 5th because I just don't know. With that said, I think this bot lane with Huhi is an upgrade overall, although I think you could have probably better options than Stixxay, although Stixxay would most likely just be able to hold his ground. And then Licorice is Licorice. I'm sorry, your golden days are gone from Cloud9. He just has not looked the same. He didn't look good on FlyQuest. He hasn't looked good on Golden Guardian since he came over here. I feel like there had to have been better other options for Golden Guardians to pick up than Licorice, and it's not that he won't do his job. I mean, but he's just outside of like 1 or 2 games throughout the whole season, he just really does not impress. And so for those reasons alone, it's like the potential's there to go higher, but I just don't see this team really averaging above 8th.
Yeah, no, I think that was all fantastic commentary on the Golden Guardians situation. I think they can compete, and I think they'll be the team this year that you have to watch out for, that you're not going to take for granted that you will beat them. I think they're going to be that team that on any given day they can randomly show up and take a game off of an EG, a TL, a FlyQuest. I think we will see that happen. I could even see a world where for like the first few weeks they go off on like a 4-2, 5-1 run, and people are like, "Oh wow, Golden Guardians is legit. They're so good." And then things come crashing down to earth as the other teams kind of start putting stuff together. But they are not going to, by any means, be a team that you can just overlook. So, and, you know, if they snag that 7th or 8th place spot in summer playoffs, that's not necessarily a team that I am happy about drawing if I'm falling to the lower bracket. So there's that. Curly, hit the Golden Guardians button one more time, and then we'll move on to 7th.
Yeah, sure thing. I think, you know, Nox summed it up real well. Like, Stixxay Huhi, too. Like, I think that's going to be the shining part of this roster and where a lot of their success is going to be able to come from, because they're old friends. They were part of the CLG team that made it all the way in MSI a couple of years back. And so, like, if they can put themselves back up to that level of power and performance, this Golden Guardians has a shot to shoot above everyone's power rankings. But the things I think that drag it down are River and Licorice, because River was kind of inconclusive for me about where he fell in the rankings last year as a jungler from what I saw in the LCS. Like, sometimes he looked better than I thought he would. Sometimes he looked worse. And then Licorice, he's been here a minute. He's been around some teams. I had limited success on all of them, and I think the game is changing faster than he is, and I think, like, I think he's definitely the weak spot of the team. And then Gory, I also did a quick review of like where he's been. It's like, I don't know what to say about this guy. So he could be a big place of like, oh shoot, 5 weeks from now he's playing so well that I've got to put Golden Guardians up to 6 or whatever. Yeah, you know. So but because of the inconclusiveness of Gory and just kind of the lacklusterness of Licorice, I think that's why I have them so low as well.
Yep. No, yeah, I agree. All right, so if you're coming in now, just a reminder, it's Curly, Nox, Sandy, and then the aggregate from left to right. I'm going to jump us the next 3 because they're all the same teams, but I think it provides some good discussion. Collectively, Dignitas in 7th, and then some debate over 100 Thieves and CLG. Curly and I with the 5-6 100 Thieves CLG, and then Nox disagreeing, putting CLG into the top 5 and 100 Thieves below. Curly, I know you just went.
Yeah, sure.
But now I'm going to ask you to talk about Dignitas. This is a weird roster. Dignitas splashing in for some big-name players only because of that salary drop
Yeah.
from the off season. So talk to me about why you've got Dignitas in 7th, and then we can move towards this 100 Thieves CLG debate.
Yeah, so Dignitas, the reason I put them up in 7th is because I definitely think that Jensen and Santorin are going to be the backbone of this team. And that's where we're going to be able to see, some punching up, taking wins from the expected top 3 teams of like TL, FlyQuest, and I would say C9 or EG are one of the runnings for that. So I think they're going to be the backbones of it. And I think they'll both have something to prove as well, like with Santorin being tired of being in the 4th place curse and Jensen getting to Worlds and then having a bit of a flop. I think they'll come back hungry to prove things. Things fall short for me when we get to Spawn and Arma. Spawn has always kind of been like a lower tier ADC for me in the LCS. And then Arma, I liked him on Mad Lions, and I think that's because the team worked well with him. I don't know if this team is going to work as well with the way he plays, because I will say he had some high highs, but he also had some low lows. And it's oddly enough similar to Solo, where if you like take him off of Gnar, it can be a bit questionable.
Right.
I think there's a lot of pro players that just really thrive on the Gnar and potentially flop otherwise, and Arma falls into that category. But I'm also, as an LEC fan, I am excited to see Arma play here. So yeah, I think that's why I have them in 7th. It's because it's some people with things to prove, some people with things that might fall short.
Yeah, totally. All right, Nox, let's talk 100 Thieves CLG. So you've got CLG up into 5th. You have the Faith. So talk to me about
maybe unfortunately.
Yeah, so talk to me about why you've got them here and 100 Thieves in the spot below them.
I am putting, pardon the faith, I'm putting a lot of faith in the fact that this roster is staying the same. You saw what it did for 100 Thieves going into this past year. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people were dissing them for how quote-unquote boring they were, but at the end of the day, they were still consistently the second best team in the LCS, right?
Right.
I believe that synergy of being able to stick together really, really does mean something. And I do believe that the staff behind CLG currently is very, very good. And that'll be a lot of the backbone and support that this team needs to continue to be in the top half of the standings. Looking at 100 Thieves, I mean, you're finally bringing up Tenacity after all your hard work of getting him trained and getting him LCS ready. Ignore the little awkward whatever it was last year, one game he lost to FlyQuest. Ching, we take those. He's finally prepped and ready, right? And then you had Closer, who's an absolute god of jungling currently, is looking great. Bjergsen, who I thought was one of the best mid laners all last year. Maybe you'll have more competition this year. I don't know, but everything I'm seeing is showing that this man should still be good. I'm going to skip over Double It for a second because he's kind of my final point. And then you have Busio, same thing as Tenacity. He's been in the 100 Thieves training chamber for a while. Come on to the LCS stage. I think I have a lot of faith in him to do well, but at the same time, he is still a rookie. Still needs time to develop. And then you're going to have Double Lift as well, who has been out for 2 years, who I don't think has looked as good. I know some people are saying that he has inklings of his old self again, and he said so himself, but he's also said himself that he's just not quite the same. Couple this with the fact that 100 Thieves has had multiple layoffs of staff. Most specifically, recently, there was a very important analyst that was just dropped for the 100 Thieves LoL team. Don't get me wrong, I think CLG and 100 Thieves are going to be fighting for this 5th place spot. I'm just going to give the edge to CLG because there's a lot more going for them and a lot more momentum going for them into the split, whereas 100 Thieves is kind of taking blow after blow after blow. Come summer, very much a possibility to ramp it back up again, especially when you have Unforgiven in your pocket sitting in the academy, right?
Right.
But for the time being, I just think CLG has a lot more momentum going into the split than 100 Thieves does, which is why I'm giving them the edge.
Yeah. Yeah, I do not disagree about CLG remaining together and the strength that can bring. I think, though, that 100 Thieves still has a fairly decent roster, and they will compete, and they will be in playoffs both spring and summer. Absolutely. I think as I'm looking towards where things go towards the end of the season, as end of spring even, I feel like they will start to ramp up a little bit more as things go on. I think they're going to look shaky to start, but they will make it through. They will start to look better as time goes on. Tenacity, this is his chance to really show us what he's got. Closer is a known entity. We know what he can do. We know just the power he can bring to the Rift. Bjergsen is just so solid. Busio, it's finally his time to show up on the Rift. And Double Lift is the question mark for me, and that is why this team is down to 5th in my book. Because I don't think he's going to be that great to start. But I feel like he will get that grind on, and this team will look better. CLG, I'm really excited that this team is back together in one piece, that there were no changes for them player-wise. It's going to be exciting to see what they can do. And honestly, I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they prove this 6th place power ranking wrong, and they really just make a huge jump into that top 4. That would be my ideal for them. I would be really excited to see that happen. I just think that their level of player that they have in comparison to some of these top 4 teams is just like a slight tier below. But they will be, you know how I said Golden Guardians is like one of those teams that could beat anyone? CLG is even more so of that. They will be a problem for every single team above them in the standings. You cannot overlook this team. They are absolutely playoff material. I expect them to be there, and I probably can see them making a top 4 in either spring or summer. So there's that. Curly, unless you've got anything, I'm going to move us up to 4th. And am I going to do 4th and 3rd? No.
Yeah, I mean, just to get some quick comments, and I think, like, echoing what you guys say with, like, the running back on CLG is, like, definitely something that inspires confidence. And then I think these are all benchmark players, where if you can perform better than them, you belong in the top half of the league. Like, if you look at the rest of my rankings on the graphic I sent you, and that's pinned on my Twitter, like, you will see none of these players lower than 7th. And then for 100 Thieves, I agree with you with Double Lift being kind of like the question mark here that brings things down, because he's coming out of retirement. And then also for me, like, personality wise, because that's something I'd consider, like, for players that have known personalities, is how that contributes to the team. His personality for me isn't my favorite thing, and I don't know how that's going to contribute to the team atmosphere when things get tough. And I think that's going to be something that limits them to 5th place, as well as the lack of LCS experience from Tenacity and Busio. They're just kind of untested here. So that's, you know, my quick comments on all that.
Yeah. No, that's good. All right. Let's move it
4th.
up to 4th. Team Liquid for Curly and Knox. Cloud9 for myself.
Bringing back the meme, baby.
Bringing back the
meme. The horse is in 4th.
The horse in 4th. Let's talk about this. Team Liquid, Summit, Piosik, Harry, Jan, Core, JJ. And I've got Cloud9, the Fudge, Blabber, Diplex, Berserker, Sven. So I've got Cloud9 low because I simply don't know how Diplex will match up against NA. And I honestly still don't like Sven in the support role. I hope he's increased his champion pool over the last few months, but we saw the Berserker Sven bot lane was very good in summer because of the meta. And I just worry that they are just trying it again because it looked good last year, and not because Sven's gotten magically better or has a bigger support pool now. You guys have this truly stacked Team Liquid roster full of Korean and Academy talent, or Challenger talent, excuse me. But you have them so low in 4th. Nox, talk to me about Team Liquid, why you've got them down here.
So, for me, you have how do I want to phrase this? You have 2 Academy talents who are on their way up, and I'm very, very happy about this. I'm very proud to see Academy talent now in the LCS, and they absolutely deserve their shot. Having said that, though, Harry is probably... I don't... Where did I have Harry? Let me check really quick. I have Harry currently ranked as 6th amongst... Oh, no, sorry. I have Harry ranked 7th. No, good lord, I cannot read. I have him ranked 8th. I have him ranked 8th place. My bad.
He keeps going down.
my spreadsheet moved and I was looking at the wrong person. I have Harry ranked 8th place, just above Maple and just above the Blaze Olive. I'm not predicting to have a good split, and that is really saying something because I think the rest of this TL roster is fairly solid. Following up with that, you have Yeon, who is also a young rookie, who is going to be paired with Core JJ, which is probably going to make him look a lot better than he may actually be. But I think he's going to have moments of hesitancy where he's not going to be able to have that kind of kill switch and so on and so forth. So he's probably going to look fairly good because Core JJ is there, but I don't think he's going to be looking elite levels. Then you have Summit, who, let's just be honest, is going to probably be the best top laner here in the LCS, I think. I will be just genuinely curious how well he meshes with the team, because we saw what happened with Cloud9 this past spring, right? That's just kind of like the one little question mark for me, and that's probably a little reason why I docked TL a little bit. And then you have, at the end of the day, World Championship Pioshik, right? Like, holy crap, how did this happen? I mean, we know how it happened, right? They just, like, DRX crazy timings and, yeah, exactly. Point being, though, is and this is going to be funny because I know you're a huge DRX fanboy, Sandy, so you can absolutely lambast me here in a second, but I'm not that high on Pioshik. Everything that I saw while I was doing research for Vikla and Prince over this offseason, I watched a fair amount of them, and I'll be honest, during the regular season, I agree with what everyone was saying. He really was not all that impressive. And then coming in the Worlds, I do think he stepped it up, but I still don't think he was anywhere near the top, 4 junglers, or maybe debatably the top 6. I just don't think he was that quality of good. So I do think he will be good here in the LCS, but at the same time, you have to consider that the LCS's best position is jungle. So you have a World Championship jungler who probably wasn't as good as a lot of people are saying that he is, going into a league where their best role is jungle. I'm sure he will do fine, but he's not going to be the reason that this team is consistently winning, I don't think.
Right.
I really do think that's going to be coming off the back of Summit and Core JJ. And all of that combined is the reason why I do have them 4th. They will be good, but I think there's going to be moments of, them not getting it together due to either Harry not stepping up, Pioshik not being able to hard carry when he needs to, or Yeon still learning his job and what he needs to do as an AD carry on this Team Liquid squad. But, hey, that is what it is, and maybe I'm wrong.
There you go. No, I think that was great. I think, for me, I really love when a team mixes up veteran talent and young, promising prospects such as Yeon and Harry. I think Team Liquid has proven over and over again in the last several years that they can put together teams that compete at the highest level of North America, not necessarily internationally, but at the highest level of North America. And I expect them to do the same here. I have them actually fairly high up, and you guys will see how high I have this team. Maybe I'm delusional. Who knows? But that is where I've got them. Curly, I'm going to come to you for the next thing, because now you have Cloud9, and really our top 4 diverge so much from each other that I think there's a lot of interesting discussion. We are starting to run low on time, so we're gonna try to slam through these. But
yeah, I'll be quick about this.
Cloud9 for you at 3. Nox has EG, and then I've got FlyQuest.
So yeah, for the really like this top 4, we're in the game of inches now. Like, it is literally just like 0.5 seconds ahead on the lap, a centimeter longer. Like, there's such minimal differences in the power and talents of this squad to me, that what edges out Cloud9 when I made my power rankings, I will admit, I think I might change them in the coming weeks with the loss of Max Waldo, but Fudge, Blabber, I really like them being kind of the faces of C9 for these last couple of years. I think they're really good at their role. I think they're going to be good for the team. And then Berserker, like, is just such a pop-off player for them. The only weak points are potentially Diplex coming in, and then Sven is oddly, like, if you looked at my full power rankings, Sven is all the way down in 9th place for the supports. So, like, statistically, C9 shouldn't be where it is if you average my players. Yeah. And the only reason I put them above Team Liquid right now is because of the underperformance of Piosik, despite being a world's champion, and like Harry kind of being that new talent with a lot of other bigger names up there. So that's why I have C9 third when I made this.
Nice. All right, Nox, talk to me about EG third.
Okay. So part of this is usually what I do whenever I do my power rankings. I make it a point to have at least one vibes like ranking per se. Mm-hmm. And so logically for me, I really do want to put Evil Geniuses second, but I usually make it a point to have at least one vibes ranking. And spoiler alert, my one vibes ranking is I actually have Cloud9 coming in second. And this is very much the same reason why I have CLG 5th over 100 Thieves. They have a lot of built-in synergy coming into the split. The only change they made was Diplex or Diplex, I don't know actually how the pronunciation is, replacing Jensen, right? And I do think, I know you were talking about this earlier, Sandy, but I do think that coming into the split, Sven has had a lot more time to practice the support role, has diversified how to play it, understands it a lot better. So for me, I'm very much expecting this team to come in ripping hot, and I think that they're going to end up overtaking and surpassing Evil Geniuses for the third place spot. So logically, if I was going off of normally what I do, I would actually probably have EG second, but I think vibes-wise, there's just something telling me that, hey, this is the one that I need to put up, even though I actually don't think is what will happen. That's just how I do power rankings. Like, do you guys ever do that?
Sometimes I do. I usually look at the players on paper, but also if I just feel like a team's got what it takes, they've got the sauce, you know. Then
it's usually how I settle out mid.
Yeah,
middle of the pack is mostly vibes.
I think normally I typically tend to do bottom of the pack or middle of the pack when I do power rankings for a vibe pick. But I don't know. I'm getting a vibe, and I say this as someone who's not a fan of Cloud9, and especially Sven. These are not a team and not a player that I'm a fan of, but I have a vibe. I have a feeling it is going to be a second place finish for Cloud9 this split.
Well, there you go. Well, I think that's a good opportunity to move us up to 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring all the rankings.
Yeah, bring the last 2 up here.
So, Curly with Fly EG C9 in the 1, 2, 3. Nox with Fly C9 EG, and then I am EGTL Fly. So I believe in FlyQuest. I truly do. I just think this EG roster and this TL roster are a little bit better right now. I think the EG roster especially, I have a lot of faith in. They're bringing back almost the entire team. Someday is, basically just a side grade. It's in my mind, it's practically the exact same team that just won summer. Spring. Thank you. They won spring, and then FBI. I think there were a lot of questions around FBI versus Danny last year. I think bringing in FBI is a huge win for EG. huge upgrade, or not upgrade, huge guy for stability in the bot lane. FBI will not lose you games. So that's why I've got EG up there. I think they took 2 players who played together, threw them in with 3 players who won LCS last year together, and I think this is just a great roster. I'm excited to see what they do. I fully expect them to dominate the LCS. And then we've already talked about Team Liquid a bit, so Nox, why don't you, or Curly actually, why don't you talk to me about your Fly, EG, C9, 1, 2, 3, and then Nox will hit you, and then we'll close out the show.
For sure. So I kind of just talked a bit about C9, and like I said, it's like they just got that extra bit above, primarily with Blabber and Fudge and Berserker. So with EG, this is really one of my favorite rosters, because like if you look at my power rankings, Someday, Inspired, and Vulcan all first place in their respective positions. JoJo second only to Vikla, and FBI in third. And I'm really reliant on the FBI, like Vulcan synergizing much better with FBI than who he did in that last split to make them a solid bot lane contender. Someday, I think, is like... Someday Impact could box each other 10 times, and it would be a 5-5 split. And it, like, it's just the day that's going to put Someday on top of him. Inspired is the best jungler in the LCS right now. And then JoJo is like, he is confident and cocky, and that's what you need in the mid lane role. And so it's just like the individual talents of all these players and the way that they mesh so well, I think is going to make them so good with EG. And then I just have all the hype for FlyQuest. I put them in first because I really think last year showed that a really solid ADC in Berserker was what C9 needed to pop off. And we've got Prince now. And then mid laner was the second role you were looking at a lot last year. We've got Vikla. We've got the 2 key roles of what seems to be the LCS meta in first place. Spica is reliable. Impact is reliable. And then Ayla, I'm super hyped for coming from Academy. And then you pair this with the coaching staff we have and the philosophy that I know Sharks brings to the game. I think it's just the formula for a #1 team.
Lovely. All right, Nox, give me your thoughts on your top 3.
My top 3, like I said, Evil Genius is number 3, but that's just off of vibe. Logically, I think they're number 2. Cloud9, vibe pick, number 2. I think they're actually probably number 3. And then FlyQuest, number 1, baby. It's only taken a bunch of years to finally be ranked powerful number 1, but it's finally here. I'm not going to reiterate everything Curly said, but I think something I do want to point out, though, is I don't know for anyone who's been watching the LPL, but the meta has been very bot-centric. It's been very bot carry-heavy. Not to say that other roles and other lanes haven't had important moments and just overall games, but I think a lot of it is skewing towards maybe bot lane being the more important lane currently, in which case we have a team setup that is very much meant to thrive in that sort of meta, right? You have Prince and Ayla and then Vikla, who are all here to help support Prince be this huge hyper carry come the late game. And then you have Spica, who's this very like carry heavy jungler who will make sure the game gets going for all of his players, right? And then you have Impact, who consistently can play weak side, and if need be, for whatever reason, if the meta changes, he can do occasional carry games as well. Everything is screaming, telling me that this FlyQuest roster is going to be first. I believe this team to get first this season, and damn it, like, they deserve it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm rooting for FlyQuest to be number 1. But yeah, that's my top 3 right there. EG, TL, Fly. And that is about it for the evening. Closing out the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Season 3, Episode 2 of Flight Check. The best episode yet, in my opinion. I know there's only
True,
2
big
episodes,
facts.
But
undeniable.
Truly the second of all the episodes. It's at least top 2 of Season 3. So, NACL starts this Saturday. LCS is next week. FlyFAM and Fly Challengers taking on 5 different opponents. So be sure to follow us on Twitter for all our instant reactions and thoughts to that. You can catch
10 games, baby.
10 games. You can catch the show guaranteed. You know, it's not even like, best of 5s where it's like, okay, minimum 3. 10 games definitively to talk about. So catch the show at Flight Check Crew, myself at Santos DB, Nox at Noxwar with 2 R's, and Curly at Curly_QQ_. Make sure to hop into the Flight Check Discord as well, where all kinds of esports discussion otherwise takes place. Hit me up there if you want in on the Flight Check Fantasy League. There are 4 spots remaining. If you missed any part of this episode, the VOD will be up on YouTube tonight or tomorrow morning. If you're watching that and would like to catch the show live, we broadcast the episode usually every Monday night, usually at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at twitch.tv/FlightCheckCrew. Nox, what champion, this is all we get to say tonight. What champion do you hope is picked in the very first game of the LCS season?
Lulu. Always Lulu.
There you go.
Everybody hates that, but Lulu.
Curly, what's your call?
Akali.
All right, Kali. And for me, bring back Trundle. You know me. Trundle one trick. I just want to see some Trundle.
Santorin is in the LCS.
He is in the LCS. It is possible. All right. I know there's a bunch of stuff coming up this week. We've all got things cooking, so be sure to keep track of us on Twitter and in the Discourse for all of that. But for now, I'll just say thanks so much for watching. Please stay safe out there. Don't forget to hit the head on the nail, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Adios, everybody.
Have a good one, guys.
Peace, y'all.